Hey guys, welcome to the first online session for Sunway Tech Club. So before we start the event, please make sure you have muted your microphones to avoid disrupting the event. And before we start, we'd like to introduce about who we are. So basically, we are a community of students who wants to bridge the gap between tech education, tech entrepreneurship, and tech industry. And we organize a lot of events such as workshops. We also have tech talks. And now we would like to present to you our bi-weekly meetup session, which is Tech Night. So essentially what Tech Night is an online learning, networking, coding, sharing session for students to basically learn more about new technologies and to meet other tech geeks. And the primary objective of the event is to introduce students to new technologies, as well as to allow us, the communities of Sunway Tech Club, to better engage with you, the members of our club, as well as to build a strong tech community in Sunway campus. So that is basically what Tech Night is about. And this meetup session will be organized every bi-weekly. And this session will be the first episode 1. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Pupu, who will be talking about Strapi. So let's get started.
All right, thanks, Marcus, for the introductions. So today I'm going to teach you about Strapi. So before I go to that, so can I open my Sunway Tech Club GitHub repos? So all the resources that covered in today will be listed here. So you can go to GitHub Sunway Tech Club /TechNight1 Strapi. So this is the GitHub repo, and you can see the slides is here. And all right, let's get started. So Strapi, essentially Strapi allows you to design an API fast. So if you are a backend developer, so you must be very familiar with the term about API, application program interface. And also it allows you to manage content easily. You can think of it like it's a WordPress, but it's for backend. All right. Why do we need this, right? So I myself as a software developer at Met22, so I've been developing the backend for quite a while, and I sometimes feel like it took me a very long time to develop a backend, months and weeks. But after I embrace the Strapi itself, I find myself I can shorten up my backend development times from weeks to hours. I'm going to show you how we can do that later. And also, Strapi allows you to manage your content easily with their web GUI, and it's a local host, by the way. So you don't need to spend extra hours to build an admin site and like manage your blogs and manage like all your products. Strapi already have like a built-in admin for you. So you can also exit easily. One of the most feared from what I experienced before as like deciding a technology for companies is that you're very scared about like once you enter this technology stack, and you will be very hard to exit. It's like you have to keep sticking with it, like Laravel, PHP, or even Express and Java. Okay, sure. So right, let's get back. So where was I? I was talking about like we can manage the content easily with the GUI. That you can you don't need to spend extra hours to build your admin site, and you can exit easily by following the because Strapi itself follows the open API specifications. So one of the most feared the reason one of the most feared for us to design a technology is Gona, because when we design a technology for companies, we often scared about like if we have to stick with the environments. Like if we are going for Laravel, we have to stick with it for a very long time, and we can't exit easily. Right? We can migrate to another tech stack in the futures. But Strapi itself allows you to plug and play into another technology stack very easily, and it sort of like remove the scare for you. And it is most importantly, it is headless. So it means the headless means that the backend the Strapi itself acts like a web service, not web service, the backend service that will not affect your front end. So Strapi has only one very clear objective, is to directly give you your all your API, generate all your API within a few clicks. That's their objective. So and also so that it's 100% JavaScript. So some people will love it, some people will hate it, but yeah, it's 100% JavaScript. It's open source. I think they just get around like a 10 million funding in the Series A funding. So there is no doubt that they're going to be growing bigger and bigger. And the developer experience for me, at least for myself, is very great. So also, as Strapi helps you to abstract all the common tasks. You don't need to implement, authentication again with your Strapi app. With your Strapi app, you don't need to develop the API again. Develop all the JWT, JSON Web Token again. Strapi helps you handle everything within a few clicks. All right. Without further ado, let's take like a very quick demos. So it's better to action more than 1,000 words. But before that, I would like to inform you what's included in the demo like this and what's not included. So in the demo like this, I'm going to create a new data model, or in SQL, it's a tables. It's called school. And also I'm going to create a relations between the school tables and the user table. So one school has many users kind of relations. I'll show you how to make a simple authentications and how you can access all the API endpoints very easily. So what's not included here is a 0 to master lecture. You're not going to become a Strapi master with just these 20 minutes of sharing. I'm not going to cover about file uploads that allows you to upload directly to AWS S3. And I'm not going to include how can you override the endpoint handler to implement your own logics. I'm not going to include how to you setting out with external database. So currently we're using SQLite right now. That is definitely not recommended for production use. All right, so this is the resource that we're gonna have, which is here, the GitHub that I just showed you just now. So without further ado, right. So what's covered in this GitHub report is like a step-by-step kind of a documentation of what we're going to exactly latest. So if you can't catch up, no worries, because you can just go to this GitHub reports and follow it at your own pace. So if not, let's get started. So right now I have a folders ready. So I'm gonna open it up, turn on my command line. So to install Strapi, right, it's very simple. It's not like WordPress that you have to configure, spin out your XAMPP, spin out Apache servers, and configure a lot of things. With Strapi, it's just one single command: npx create Strapi app. Then your directory, in this case, maybe like a demo or like a my first Strapi app, whatever the file name you want. And with the flag of quick start. So the quick start will let you will tell the Strapi that you're gonna use to start as fast as possible. Everything just default configurations. That is going to use SQLite. So in the case, if you want to implement the MongoDB database, SQLite, Postgres, you can edit it in a folder structure later. Just export the configurations with one line, or you can just remove the flags, and it allows you to choose a few of the configuration here directly. But right now, I already installed it. I already run this to make ourselves faster, and you can see it's right here. I already installed it previously. So gonna spin up my Visual Studio Code, right, and gonna run the npm run develop. So you can see all the other scripts that you can use right here, or you can reference it from the documentations. So after you have spin it up, you're gonna see this very cool wrap photos. It's written in React. So right now, once you install it, it's going to automatically spin this up, and I'm going to put a register right now. So my email, gmail.com, my password. So maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Definitely don't want to use this in production because you don't want to have like the other hackers. Oh, okay, sure. Okay. Okay, so I have my super admin right now, so I can register this. And you can see now that we have this very intuitive designs, a dashboard that allows you to do everything on this web. So most of the time, you don't even need to touch the code. You just do everything right here to build your backend. And I'm going to cover this, which is on your left. You can see this. There are 3 sections for you. Collection types essentially is all your tables that you can have, and your plugins in general. So in order for us to, so we're gonna start our first creating tables that you're going to go to this content types builder plugins. All these plugins are built-in plugins implemented by Strapi. It integrated seamlessly, so it ensures that there is no bugs going on, there's nothing bad going on. So after we click on the content types, you can have 3 types of content types. The first one is a collection types. In SQL, we call it tables. A single, and you can have a single type. A single type, the difference between a single type and collection types is that the single type is always meant for a kind of like a standalone endpoint, like dashboard, home page, or and any other like blogs, or not blogs, maybe a home page, dashboard, feed, all these things. There is kind of like a single types that you can call this and get the data that you want. So right now we're going to focus on the collection types. And in the future, if you want, we can create a components as well. A components is like a reusable components that you can attach to both of the types right here. But that's you won't usually use that unless you're dealing with arrays. Like that. So right now I'm going to create a collection types, which is the tables. Going to call it a scoop. They're very cautious that it's singular, not plural, because the Strapi will help you to convert it into plural. So you have to be ensured that you put in the singular forms. And continues. And after you click continues, you are able to choose a field, choose your fields. And Strapi has all the like built-in fields for you, like tags, numbers, date, JSON, UID, relations, and it's exactly like the same as how you will write in the SQL, your fields, your columns. So right now, I'm going to click on the text, and the name of this field is called title. The title of the schools, and you can have like a default values. You can even have a regular expression patterns to validate the data. You can set like is private field, required field, unique, or maximum length and minimum length. So then let's finish and save. All right, it takes a while to generate the data. So once it like, if you save it, right, so where we can see this is under this, if you can see it, right, inside these API folders, you can see like a schools. So in the future, if you want, you can override in here, let module export your custom event handlers and your services, your models. So just now I said like it's following a open API format, right? So in the future, if you want to exit Strapi, you can just copy this JSON file and then import it into another place, because it is essentially an open API specifications that you can follow. So right now, we have created the first the school tables, and you can see on the left hand side the collection types. There's a schools here. So realize it is plural, not singular. Click on it, and we can add a new schools. So the first new school, we can say like Sunway Tech Club. So it's a club, not school. We save. A entry is essentially like a row in a SQL, normal SQL database that you can, in the future, you can grab it easily. So right now we have these schools, and how can we get this entry that we had just created? It's very simple. I'm gonna go to localhost. By default, Strapi use 1337, and the MPI is very simple, /schools. So right now you will see it returns a forbidden. The reason is because we have a Strapi roles and permissions here, which is it allows like 2 roles: authenticated, which is your users, and public. So right now we are coming from public, and by default, Strapi is secure by default. It blocks all the requests from public and from any other roles. You have to enable it by yourself, but I'm going to show you that later on. So, but right now you can see that when you go for the schools, it does respond something like that. No, at least it's not showing errors. But anyway. Okay, so before that, I'd like to introduce you some of the concepts of Strapies. Strapi is a convention over configurations framework. It follows open API. So what does it mean by convention over configurations? Imagine an Express app is called configuration over convention. Everything that you write, like the get endpoints, your put endpoints, and where your file located and where your services located, you have to explicitly tell the Express app where it is. A convention over configuration framework is like Laravel, it's like Django, and even like Strapi, is that it follows what every other people do. So if all the people is doing in like structure their file structure in this way, then you have to structure it in this way, because doing that way, they can wash the files by using your file structures. They can build your endpoint using your file structures instead of you explicitly tell them where the file is. So if you don't understand it, don't worry. In the future, probably you can see why convention over configuration sometimes is better. And it follows an MVCS pattern. So if you don't know what is MVCS pattern, it's essentially model view controller services like design patterns. So we have a MVC, right? If you are like software engineer background, which is a model views controllers, but Strapi follows a MVCS patterns. So it allows you to separate all your functions, all your modules into a different place and different modules. It has a plugins. It allows you to have external functionalities like automatically upload your file to AWS tree or to any other like provider that you want. You can even write your own plugins on like how can we handle that. And it has like a lot of like built-in plugins, like built-in authentication with JSON web tokens. It's a typical way of how we handle the authentication in the web or even in mobile app as well. So all these things are built in by default that you don't even need to configure. It's built in. It's by default. So okay, let's continue with the demo. So we're gonna fix these issues and we're gonna add a student to the school itself. Gonna show you how to make the relation between the tables. And let's go back to the dashboard. You can see the roles and permissions in the plugins here. So we are coming from public because we have no authorization headers. So we're gonna have the public and gonna edit this. So you can see from public, right? You can see it's a default role given to our unauthenticated users. So we are an unauthenticated users. And we're gonna, when you scroll it out, you can see there are like different applications that you can select. In our case, we have the schools table. We're gonna enable the public to have access to count, find, and find ones. So Strapi will generate all these API endpoints for you. So right now I'm gonna do save. And if you go back and refresh, you can see it returns the JSON back, the entry back to us. So you can see we have the updated by, created by, and the titles and IDs created by, and all these things come for free. If you're building from a Express app, probably you're gonna take like a 30 minutes or even 45 minutes to build these endpoints. You're gonna set up your MongoDB, you install the Mongoose, and you're gonna write your Express endpoint all manually. So it will take a lot of time. By Strapi, if we remove like the time for us to explain it, it only takes you 3 seconds to do this. So this is what I mean, that it can compress really down your backend development faster. So we have this, and let's try to add students to the schools. So we're gonna go back to the content types builders, and collection types school tables. I will add another field of relations. So Strapi also will generate all these relations to you. Like you can have a one-to-one relations, one one-to-one relations and one-to-many relations, many-to-one relation, many-to-many relations, and one-to-many relations. So in our case, we want to have a field name called students. So these schools will have a users. So just rename it to students. One school will have many users. So others are not like the relation that we want. So we're gonna choose this. One school has many users. Click on the finish and save. It will wait for a while and we will generate it. So you can even see like in the JSON file is updated, students, plugin, and collection users. So let's go back to the schools. But right now we don't have any users. So I will teach you how we can create a users by spinning out my Postman. Right, take some time to put it up. All right. So if you go to the Strapi documentation, it will show you how you can register and sign up a users. So also this is a good time, best time to introduce the Strapi documentation. It is one of the best documentation out there. If you really want to deep dive into the Strapi, to learn Strapi, you can go to here. So right now we're going to create a, sorry, but anyway, gonna read it after. So how we can create it is that we'll go to the endpoint, localhost 1337 slash the endpoints for the authorized for user sign up is determined by the roles and permission plugins. So the plugins here it allows you to manage your authentication. So the endpoints is off slash locals slash registers. The endpoint here is fixed by Strapi, so you can't really change it, although if you really want, but strongly not recommend it. But essentially, this is the common way for you to register. So can I send a request of say my username is Pupubert and my email is brainchai4240 at gmail.com, and my password is, oh my god, can't type, 234. So essentially these are like the required field for you to register a users, but you can set it up also, like if you click on the users, you can see all the field they have in the user table. So the email, username, and password, the provider here, we can skip it now. Yeah, so yeah, like other stuff. Once we send it out, you will see it returns this JWT and the users role users object that you create. So if we go back and click on the users tables, you're gonna see we successfully register a new users. That's how you can easily to sign up and log in event. So we have the JWT token right here that in the future you might want to authorize an authentication. That's when you can set it up here. So right now, if we can turn it off, I can open it on. So authentications, you can set up like the default role going to give to the authenticated users. You can give them like all the others, maybe other endpoints. But right now, I'm going to do that. We're gonna go into the schools, click on this, and we will add a users to this, and click on the save. Okay, so you see like we had already added new students to the Sunway Tech Club schools. So right now, if you go back and refresh, you're gonna see we have the students field, and then associated with an array of users. So in this case, will be the students. So we have the email providers, and Strapi is smart enough to exclude password in this case, because you definitely don't want to send the user's password, right? So you can even like in the future, if you really want to customize your endpoints, you can tell Strapi not to send something and what to send. So that's when you can do your customizations. But right now we have successfully added a new students to the schools. And we can get that endpoints very easily by going to 1337 slash slash schools. All right. So I have shown you all these things, and let's continue with it. So essentially, that sums up the demo for the Strappy. And these are all the resources that you can refer to if you want to learn further. We have the GitHub repo, which is what we showed just now. All these things, and that like essentially like covered up all the steps that we have just now, right? And this is Strappy documentations. Strongly recommend to take a look if you really want to get started. There's a quick start guide, a more comprehensive versions, and it's a bit more complicated, but it allows you to get started very quickly. And we have a Strappy YouTube, very good ones actually, surprisingly. So they have all the playlists for their tutorials, and even you can integrate Gatsby with Strappy. And that's it. So Q&A sessions right now. So any question from the floor? Okay. Any question from the floor? All right. So I think that means no question from the floor. Okay. All right. So yeah, I think that's it. Okay, sure. Right. So I'm going to pass the floor to Nick. He's going to talk more about software development life cycles on how we can do like all these software things. And yeah.
Right. Sorry, I'm not gonna sit that high up. Right, just give me a second to set it up. Where was it? Okay, yeah, welcome to the second session, guys. So thank you, Pupu, for the amazing presentation. And yeah, hello, guys. Yep. In this session, I'll be talking about like SDLC or software development life cycle. And my name is Nick. And I'll try to my best to keep this short and sweet for you guys. Yep. So in this session, you'll be learning the steps and the purpose of the SDLC framework, and as well as some like software development methodologies that you can employ in your working environment. So be it projects or assignments. And mind you that this session does not require any coding work. So just sit back and relax while you're listening. Right. So let's begin by having a very brief explanation on what softwares are. Softwares are applications that you use on your computer or mobile devices. So they're things like web services, mobile applications, and your favorite editing tools. The software development lifecycle, however, is a framework that defines sequence of steps in the software development process from start to finish. It serves as a guidance for software developers or even project leaders for the projects that they are working on. And in total, the SDLC framework involves 6 steps that ensures the success of a functioning software. So yeah, let's see it. Okay, so the 6 steps are namely planning, defining requirements, designing, software development, testing, prototyping, and deployment and maintenance. Yep, don't worry, we'll go through it one by one to give you an overview of what's happening in each. So first of all, the planning phase concerns mostly on things like the allocation of resources, project scheduling, cost estimation, and more. Whether the project is practically doable or not is determined during this first step. And moving on, we have defining requirements. So this phase does most of the requirement analysis on the software by incorporating stakeholders, like clients, to understand the system's requirements better before designing. So a poorly or ambiguously established requirements may lead to project failure or end up costing a lot more money to repair the damage. And thirdly, we move to the designing phase, where it consists mostly on software architectures and user interface. So these two are actually like topics on their own, so we're not going to dive deep on it. And yeah, let's just move on from this. And after the system design phases, we'll go into like the software development phase, where most of the actions on the applications are carried out. So activities such as like coding, programming fall under this phase. However, different project teams may practice different kinds of methodologies to carry out their software development phase, which will be further discussed later. And after this software development phase, we've got what we call testing, prototyping phase, where the software is tested in different aspects, such as like code quality, performance, and security. And lastly, right, so the software will be finally deployed to the market where end users can get access to the service. And the software will be focused on mainly on maintenance and updates. Yeah. Okay, so that was everything about the software development lifecycle. So the main focus for today, however, will be the software development methodologies that you can refer to when working with projects and assignments. So the software development methodologies exist in the software development phase in the SDLC framework, in which we have the traditional model, like this one, and the Agile models. So let's start with the traditional model. Right, what you're seeing here is actually the Waterfall model. So why the model is named Waterfall is because like the project team starts from the very top phase and slowly progress downwards step by step until it reaches the very end, which the software will be deployed. So these are the steps that you can read into. Actually, I have included in the GitHub repo about the links and stuff where you can conduct more like further reading. But here, yeah, this is just like the very brief. And yeah, okay. So imagine now you are working for a group assignment, right? Oops. So you and your team have to organize multiple meetings at each phase to keep everything consistent and to ensure the contributions are integrated to avoid conflicts in programming. So yeah, but yeah, so let's just take a look at the advantages and disadvantages of this waterfall model. So the waterfall model actually, it's very straightforward. So it's very simple and easy to use. And it's very organized, as you can see, because when you finish one step, only you go to another step. So it's very simple to understand. And yeah, the documentations are very well documented because it separates into like this kind of like separate phases. Right, but the disadvantages is actually it has a lot of high risk and it's very bad for long projects. This is because like waterfall model actually cannot accommodate to changes. And so the requirements are, so the requirements has to be very well defined. And yeah, the length of the project must be short. So assignments are technically the perfect target for the traditional model. However, it's not very practical when it comes to real life projects like freelance projects or company projects because, well, it's mostly going to be a long-term project and there are high risks where clients might have a change of mind with the system requirements. And the waterfall model only produces a product at the very end of the process, which doesn't allow any demo for clients to give feedback to and to improve on the product. Yep. So now, that is why the Agile models are made. So there are a lot of Agile models in the industry, but in this session, we'll only cover like the Kanban model and the Scrum model. So we'll begin with this Kanban model. So right away, you can see like this very simple or basic kind of Kanban board. So in Kanban, right, the software features and components are represented by these kind of sticky notes and placed underneath like different swim lanes. Like here, you've got to do, you've got doing and done. So in contrast to the waterfall model, the Kanban model focuses on developing the software with increments. So they slowly add features to an existing software instead of like producing the whole software in one go. So yeah, these are like the several core practices that Kanban model uses. So the first thing is actually to visualize the flow of work. So in waterfall model, you don't get this, but in Kanban, actually you have this, kind of to do and doing and done. So it's very simplified and everything is labeled to you. So yeah, another thing is limited work in progress. So the Kanban practice actually, it practices like the doing kind of section, right? It doesn't allow too much components to be added inside. So there's like an optimal kind of productivity being established. And it's easier to manage flow. So if you look at this, the to-do, once you selected something that you want to do, you just put the sticky notes into the doing swim lane, and then that basically enhances the flow, so you can see the flow. And yeah, so you've got incremental development and feedback loops. So this one will come back later. But yeah, here's a sample of like a Kanban model in action. So actually you can make it even more customizable because yeah, you've got like backlog or like to-do development, testing, deployment, and done. So any kind of swim lanes are like you can feel free to add to kind of suit what kind of project that you're working on. Yep. So why use it? It's because like the first thing is actually incremental changes to existing software. So imagine if you are like working on a group assignment, right? Actually, you as the team leader, maybe you can like make this very simple kind of software, and then like after you have done that, you can revisit the requirements that the lecturer has given to you. So you can split that right into like different kind of components and features for the software, and then just put it up on the Kanban board for like your team members to pick one and just go straight into working. So yeah, it allows you to visualize this kind of work, especially like who is doing what and stuff like that. And the third thing, actually, it encourages like feedback loops. So what this does is actually, so whenever you put like a component, right? So let's see at this Kanban model. So if you put the sticky notes from the doing into done, right? Actually, everyone sees that, right? Everyone in your members sees that, so they can go and check and like what increments that you have done, and then just like provide feedback on the go. So it's very nice. It encourages like feedback loop that way. So and lastly, it like provides like better workflow and throughput of the whole team. And yeah, I think we can move on from there. So this is the Scrum model. This is very different from the Kanban model. Kanban model is typically for assignments, so like short-term projects, like 2 weeks to 1 month. But Scrum model, it's typically better for kind of like 3 months or like longer projects and stuff like that. So this is like the diagram. So you can see it's not very, you got it? Don't worry if it's confusing. We'll like go through it one by one. So let's see. Yep. So it is shaped like what you call like a loop, or maybe like a iterative process where each increments of the systems, right? Like the software, you've got increments, right? So it's done through a sprint, what you call a sprint. So let's just look at what this means, right? So a sprint is technically, it means like 2 to 4 weeks of committed development on the software increments. And yeah, this kind of terms later we can explain. But let's just take a look at this and we'll walk through it slowly. So the first step, actually, at the very left-sided, you've got scope. So this is first by understanding like the scope of the project. And then after that, you create like a list of to-dos that is regarding to the components and features of the software. So in other words, we call it product backlog, right? So this part is actually very similar to the Kanban model. So it's actually very okay for you to combine 2 different models together and work on it together. So yeah, that's the best thing about Kanban and Scrum, because they are like very flexible. And after that, you go into design, and then you go into sprint planning meeting. So this meeting is very important. Basically, this meeting, what you do is actually you involve your clients and then into the meeting and just talk to them and understand more about like the requirements on the system. So you can generate a more accurate sprint backlog, and then which will be done during the sprint execution. So yeah. Another practice for Scrum, right? It's actually during the 2 to 4 weeks of development for the software. Actually, every day you have got this, what we call daily Scrum. So what this does is actually, it's a meeting for the Scrum team. So what you do is actually, every day you review progress on what you have done for the whole like sprint so far, like what you have done. And then you decide on what you are working on for that day itself. So it encourages a lot of like motivation and productivity. And after that, right, after all of the sprint, after the 2 to 4 weeks, and you go to sprint review meeting and sprint retrospective. So what this does is actually just reevaluate the whole sprint, like how it went, was it nice or not, and lastly, outcomes the usable software. Yep. So these are the advantages and disadvantages. So for a Scrum model, actually it promotes a lot of like higher productivity and client satisfaction, because during the sprint planning meeting, right, we involve a client in the meeting to understand their requirements better. And it's very time efficient. So everything is done within that 2 to 4 weeks. But the disadvantages is actually it requires a lot of like high commitment. So during the 2 to 4 weeks, right, if you have got like a member who's not very motivated and just kind of slacks off, right, you may not, the sprint doesn't reach its objective, and it may lead to like project failures and or even potential bug. Yeah. So another thing is you need like an experienced team. So if your team doesn't have like the required skill set for the task that you're about to do, right, so it doesn't really make sense for you to commit to that 2 to 4 weeks, because you're just going to end up like paralyzed and not being able to do anything at all. And it lacks kind of like project end date. That is because this Scrum model actually focuses on like this whole diagram itself actually focuses just on like the increments of the software. So it doesn't say like from the start of the software at the very end of the software. It doesn't give you the view of like the goal. So you're just like eternally working on increments of the software. So that's why it's lacking like a project end date. And yeah, so when to use it, actually assignments itself, right, it's applicable, but it's not very ideal, because assignments itself, it's technically like 2 weeks or like a month. So yeah, it doesn't really make sense for you to conduct a lot of like sprints. But in terms of like FYP, in case you don't know, FYP is final year project. So for every student, right, in the final year of their degree, they actually have to do this FYP thing, which is going to be like a duration to like 3 months to 4 months. So it's the whole semester. So this is when like the communication with client is crucial, because you'll be assigned a supervisor, and you have to talk to that supervisor, right, about your needs and maybe understand like a lot more requirements and advices from the client about your software. So that's why Scrum model can be implemented in that way. But the FYP, in like for your information, is just conducted by, I mean, it's made by one person. So if you are doing FYP, you're responsible for your own FYP. So you don't have a team. So you can twist a bit on that. Yeah. After all these models are just kind of like things that you can refer to. And in conclusion, right, before we do that, actually just do a comparison between the traditional model and the Agile model. So the traditional model has very high risk. So if you don't define like the requirements well, right, at the very first stage, actually you end up costing a lot more if like there are changes from the client's requirements, because you have to backtrack, and it costs a lot more that way. Even though it's very straightforward and simple to use, it's not very flexible. But the Agile model, right, there are like realistic approaches. So you can look at the Kanban model and Scrum models. There are a lot of like other Agile models that you can venture into. But these are the tools that we decided to talk about now, because we don't have that much time. And it promotes like rapid development, and it's very flexible in terms of like it accommodates to changes. So let's give an example, shall we? So in Scrum model, right, imagine if you go through one sprint, and suddenly your client wants some changes on your software. So that kind of changes, right, can be just added into your product backlog, and you just perform another sprint again to update your software, instead of like waterfall model, where you have to like, when you go to the development stage, right, actually everything, you just stuck there, and you have to keep changing your requirements like you backtrack a lot, and then you don't progress at all. So yeah, that's the bad part about like waterfall models. And yeah, I think in conclusion, the best models to choose actually depends heavily on your situation with the project. So there are actually no bad models or like good models, but you can be the judge over which model to implement in the project that you're working on. And yeah, with that, I think the session is over, right, for my part. And if you need some resources, you can just click on this link. There are ton, like, it's explained in more details, and there are like links for you to venture into the details of all these models, so you can decide like whether you want to implement in your working lifestyle or not. And yeah, with that, I will pass on to Marcus. What? Oh, Q&A session. Oh yeah, before that we can have like a Q&A session, just in case if you guys have any questions over like the SDLC or the strategy part. So, yeah.
I think one of the most like kind of questions that I personally would like to ask, like when we are dealing for the assignments, right? is that we really don't know how can we split the task, right? So say a very straightforward examples for the like a web what's it called, web fundamentals subjects, right? So we are required to build like a e-commerce website. But the thing is that I know I have the project requirements, sort of like assignment paper, but how can we split the task? Like how big should the task be, or how small the task be to distribute to everyone? Say if you're using like the agile models.
Agile model. So in terms of that, right, actually we can think of it, let's say we use Scrum model, right?
Yeah.
So actually in case of like web development, like e-commerce website, right, you can split the task into like maybe logo making, like the navigation bar, or like buttons, or even like categories of the website. And so you can split it in this kind of like small parts, right? And then just put it into the product backlog. So, but it has to be provided that you have like an existing background. I mean, like a very backbone of the website before everyone starts to like contribute onto that, what do you call that, master branch, right?
So should we split it by using pages or by components?
By components will be the best. In terms of pages, it's not very ideal because like, what if we have the same navigation bar, but people just, your team, when you work on another page, right, you have to like do the same navigation bar again. So why not you just make it a component like the navigation bar? Everyone can handle like a specific part of the website, and then that part can be reused again and again. Yeah.
I see. So say taking like an example of our SDC website, right? That we split it into two teams. So one will be the one that did build the page, another one that build the components like the buttons, the text field, and another team is like building the pages using the components. So in that case, right, how big should the team be for each like of the teams?
Technically for Scrum model, right, the ideal kind of number of people should be around like 7 to 12. There are a lot of numbers that vary, but it should be around that range. So imagine if you have got like 6 people working on components, you can have another 7 people focus on integrating all this like components and make it look nice and layer it out on the website.
Got it.
I think, that's the point.
Yeah, I think I got some questions just now from the floor that asked about. Let me check. Asked about the strategy part, or can you work across the platforms? So okay, so I think it's these questions can be answers that. So usually how we build the backend, right? So is that we won't build like the backend is tied to the front end, so it doesn't matter which platform you are. So it's the backend. So we use an API to call. Just now we /schools, and you can see it's a text. It's not a page. So just now when we go to the /schools endpoint, it's a JSON file. So it doesn't actually matter about the front end, like is you using a web or a mobile app. As long as your platform can like pass the JSON, then it doesn't matter is it like a mobile app or web, because the way we build a mobile app, like using Flutters, is the same way as how we build a web. That we just open up the fetch request to the backend servers, and we get the data, we pass the data, and then we render the data. So it doesn't matter about the platforms.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think does that answer the questions? Okay. So Marcus, right? So is there any question again from the floor? If no, then I think Marcus, probably you can take over.
Yep. Right. Okay. That's a bit tangled.
It's actually no worries because the mic is the same.
Yeah. All right. So thank you to Pupu and Nick for their insightful session. I hope you guys do find it useful. And so Tech9 is actually open source. We intend to make it a platform where even everyone can join Tech9 and become a speaker. So it doesn't matter if you are new at tech or if you're not a tech student, we welcome everyone to join Tech9. If you're interested in becoming a speaker to share about something that you really like, tech related, of course, you can always contact us on our Facebook page, Instagram, or any of our committees. And so yeah, thanks for joining today's session. We have a few more sessions coming up, actually just tomorrow and Monday. So if you're interested in Adobe XD and Supernova, you haven't joined yet, you can still sign up for the registration. And we also have our annual general meeting coming up on 31st of July, where we'll be announcing our new board of committees. So do follow us on social media to get the latest updates, Facebook page, Instagram, GitHub, our LinkedIn, as well as our Telegram group. You can also send us an email. So yeah, thanks for joining today's session.
Right. Okay. So I think we still got some time, right? Oh yeah. So everyone, if the session is finished, but I would like to take this like the rest of like 8 minutes to explain about, because I saw some people asking about the exam part and the strappy things, right? So I can actually give like a very quick overview of how we usually how the infrastructure works, right? So we have the front end. The front end here usually will be your index.html, your HTML, or you're using sometimes using React, right? But most likely, so recently I just love this like Swap.js. It's very nice, and it doesn't matter about the front end. It can be a mobile app, a desktop app, or a website. That's what we call a front end. A front end is what a user can see. So it's like you going like literally like what you're looking right now on your browsers is called front end. So what's working behind is a back end that you have a lot of requests going on. Yeah, that you have a lot of requests going on, like the front end communicating with the back end. But the backend itself, usually it won't be like just one single programs. So we will have something called a web service and a something called a database service. So just imagine 3 components: front end, the middleman is a web service, and the database service. So the database server is your MySQL, your MongoDBs, or sometimes Postgres or any others database you can. And the web service will be act as a middleman between the front end and the back end that communicates between each others. So you can imagine the whole infrastructure as a very simple, like a buildings, all right? So when you go to a government department and you're going to maybe renew your passport or something. So when you ask the receptions about like I need to renew my forms, I need to renew my passport, and she's going to pass you the form, right? The papers that you see is called front end. So that paper itself is what you can see. It's very pretty sometimes, sometimes it's not, but it's essentially like a paper. It has nothing, no logic going to. If you just take the paper and you're not going to pass it to other people, it's useless. So it's just the paper that you can see. So after that, right, you're going to fill out your forms like your name, your passport, and all your other informations. But just filling out the forms doesn't let you renew your passport, because the government side still haven't received your forms, right? So what you need to do, you need to pass the papers to the reception. You pass the papers to them, and then you say, oh, here is my data, here is my information. And that guy, that reception basically say, okay, then got it. Then that reception is the web service that communicating between the front end and the back end. They're going to store your information somewhere else in your documents. So that's how the infrastructure works. I think, yeah. Okay, sure. So thank you everyone for joining. So as the session is over, so probably we can see you in the next 2 weeks. All right. See you.